I totally agree. I think that's part of the reason why the report card matters, and we need to be talking about this, is because it goes unseen. And let's say, okay, an extra $1,000 a family because of the road conditions hurting your car. What about every time you have to buy bottled water because there's a boil notice and you can't have safe drinking water? What if you have some lead lines in your neighborhood?
Yeah.
Like, what is the cost to your
What
health
if
if
you
you
drink
don't
water in
address those?
Jackson, Mississippi? Yeah.
Yeah, those are real problems all over our country. And
Hey, folks. Welcome to another edition of the 21st Century Engineer Podcast. I have, I think, a really interesting conversation today. If you've been around civil infrastructure for more than about 5 minutes, you've probably heard of the ASCE Infrastructure Report Card. It's done at the state level, and a lot of states are actively engaged in assessing the infrastructure condition and needs and impacts. But ASCE also does this at the national level, a comprehensive assessment, which has led to the organization, the society, being very highly respected up on Capitol Hill. ASCE has been invited to give testimony based on the report card. ASCE has had impact. The bipartisan infrastructure law, we had 43 different recommendations written into that law based upon what we had done in the 21 infrastructure report card. Well, guess what? The 25 report cards out on the street. And if you simply grab your browser, whatever browser of choice you have, and type in infrastructure report card, I absolutely guarantee you will find the website that gives you all the information about it. But who wants to spend time on a website? So I've asked Ana to sit in with us today, and I'm going to butcher her name. I've tried 4 times. I got it right 3, which means the luck on my vocabulary just went down the tube. Ana Tijerina Esquino. And
there we go. Pretty good.
Okay, good deal. Well, I'm 4 for 4. Ana, I was lecturing in Colombia several years ago after doing a research project. They didn't tell me on the front end I needed a lecture, so I had an interpreter. And I looked at the group, all of whom spoke nothing but Spanish, and I said, I'm here to let you know that I have very little Spanish vocabulary. I can understand by ear about 60 to 70% of what I hear. I can, by reading, and because of similarities between American English and the infusion of Latinx into it, I probably 30 or 40%, and that my entire vocabulary consisted of Buenos dias. So that's kind of who. I'm sorry, I have no ear. I did after a month in China, I could ask for a bottle of water and buy a dress for my daughter. That was it. So,
Yeah,
and I don't
it's
need to buy
hard.
dresses for my daughter. So I just don't have an ear for languages. Yet I adapt quite readily to them. And maybe it's because of that history I had where I did. But enough about me. I'm excited to hear what you saw, what you experienced, and how you think the listeners in our podcast today can benefit from understanding a little bit of the insights of what the ASCE report card's all about. So you want to introduce yourself and we'll get started into this.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm so glad to be with you here today and talk to all of your listeners. As Dennis mentioned, my name is Ana Tijerina Esquino. I
That's the
am
way you pronounce it, folks. And I forget everything I said up to that point.
and I'll mention, my husband, we've been together for 8 years. He doesn't speak Spanish. He can't quite pronounce my name, so I'm not too harsh on people. But I am a civil engineer based out of
Hey, I've known her for like 4.5 years now. I'm not her husband, so don't.
I think it might be longer than 4, Dennis. I was trying to think about it.
Well,
Um,
I threw the half in because I wasn't quite ready to go all the way up to 5. I don't know if it's much more than that, but it could be. We've Anna's been around ASCE in many capacities, in many ways. Very dynamic person, very communicative, very engaged. And I think that is the first time I ran for ASCE president. I think it's when we first met, which would
Yeah.
actually have been like 2020,
Yeah, I think
2019.
that's about right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I've been very involved with the American Society of Civil Engineers for a long time. I actually got involved my freshman year when I went into engineering school, and it like lit me up. Um, and I'm going to give you like a roundabout way of introducing the report card because I'll tell you why I thought it was so important. Um, I'm an engineer. I work a lot on projects that I think are really important. And I saw a lot of projects, things that we can do that we actively today know how to fix that weren't getting done. And I would like go and put effectively band-aids on problems because there were larger issues. And that's really where the report card comes in. As engineers, day in, day out, you might be asked to repair a design, or design a repair for a facility. Maybe you'll work on a comprehensive plan. But this is the opportunity for engineers to take a step back and say, how is our entire infrastructure system working? Where are we paying enough attention? Where are we not paying enough attention? And what really do we need to do to get to world-class infrastructure that's going to better serve everyone in the United States? Um, so I'm super passionate about that. And that's how I got into it. I was like, okay, I like the sphere that I'm in. I love my job. Let's see how to actually make all the engineering that we do like fit the larger purpose. Like, where are we compared to where we need to be?
Yeah.
And that's what the report card is all about.
Yeah. You go back 40 years ago and we had the number one infrastructure system in the world. We were building a lot. There was a lot of federal investment, capital investment, Clean Water Act, was actively building wastewater treatment plants. Safe Water Drinking Act got into water treatment facilities. The interstate program was hot and heavy and building that. Airports were being expanded. And then it all came to a screeching halt in the early part of the 1980s. And by the turn of the century, ASCE started the report. Actually, we started a little before then with the report card and got into looking at it. I remember very much at the end of the last century talking about preventive maintenance programs and what I now call progressive maintenance programs, not just preventing problems, but looking expanding the systems, improving them. But the money was never there, and it never seemed
Wow.
like anybody could really get things moving because we didn't talk about it. We as civil
Mhm.
engineers sat back and said, well, we'll put a band-aid on it until you decide you want to do something different. But we let the decisions be made by people that weren't us. And
Mhm.
I think the report cards are a really positive way to go about having a conversation with individuals who are change agents, who are empowered to make changes, and not so much promote the profession, but just promote quality of life, economic
Yeah.
development, safety, and everything. So, what is the report card? How about introducing it a little bit? What the depth and breadth of what this thing's supposed to try and cover?
Yeah. And the report card is something that we've been doing at ASCE since you mentioned 1998, I believe. And beforehand, there was, a movement within the federal government to assess our infrastructure because they saw the value in understanding the condition of the infrastructure, seeing where they needed to prioritize. ASCE loved that, patiently waited for the government to update something like that. And after I
Mhm.
believe around 10 years when they didn't, they were like, hey, we see the value. Perhaps politics isn't the way to solve this. So we took it on.
Yeah.
We started with
Well,
like
they
10
did the study. They
categories.
didn't like the answer, so they never did it again.
And I think that's the downside of trying to fix this through politics is they're looking at 4-year windows and infrastructure is longer than that.
Yeah.
So we need someone that is going to be committed on 50, 100, 150-year windows. So
Yeah.
we started looking at infrastructure, I think 10 categories, trying to look really comprehensively. So right now we have 8 criteria that looks at things like the funding, the future need of infrastructure, the capacity, the condition, the resiliency, a combination of things that are about the condition of the infrastructure in the present moment and its ability to withstand the changes that we see already coming and that we can predict. So we're trying to do this comprehensive assessment about where our nation's infrastructure is, what the needs are, where we're falling short, and then we give some recommendations as well.
Yep. Yep.
Now, the report card is a
And,
little bit
and we also
outside of
and we
the.
also and you also did an analysis of the negative impacts. The 2019 failure to act report uh, still it gets updated and has been embedded now, as I understand it in my reading. There are aspects of it that were embedded in the 25 version of the report card.
Yeah, so we do economic studies. So the new one wasn't failure to act, it was bridging the gap because Congress acted. We had
Right.
IIJA, a lot of
Uh,
funding,
yeah.
and we calculate how much each American household is paying because of not having good enough infrastructure. So it's like on the order of $700 a year now that American families would have to pay more if we don't do the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so how much we were
In,
paying before? Like
in
$3,000
Mississippi,
per family.
in Mississippi alone, we estimate that we lose about $1,500 a year in vehicle costs, um, maintenance, wear and tear, depreciation, as a result of the roads in the state. That's our state, and
Yeah.
I can attest to that. I traded a car in a few years ago, and I got 10,000. It was 10 years old. It was $10,000 less than what Kelly Blue Book said my car was worth. And I went to three different dealers, asked them why each of them was giving me exactly the same quote on my car. The third one finally came in and said, "It's because you're in Mississippi. You know, your car should be resellable at a really good price, but because you're in Mississippi, we're basically going to have to scrap it out for parts." And I'm
Yeah.
going, that's not my fault. It's like, well, that's where you chose to live. So
Yeah.
sorry. $1,000 a year
Yeah.
depreciation of my car
And
because
that's
because I
just
drove the roads.
transportation.
Yeah,
Yeah.
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 And that's one thing. That's just transportation. Exactly. That's just my car. It didn't say anything about my airplane or anything else about my quality of life. Go ahead. I
Yeah.
interrupted. You hit on that point, and it always resonates with me. People think you're lying when you say they're paying $700, and for maybe $100 a year in taxes, they could be saving at 700. It's a false economy.
Yeah.
But go ahead.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. I think that's part of the reason why the report card matters and we need to be talking about this is because it goes unseen. And let's say, okay, an extra $1,000 a family because of the road conditions hurting your car. What about every time you have to buy bottled water because there's a boil notice and you can't have safe drinking water? What if you have some lead lines in your neighborhood?
Yeah.
Like what is the cost to your
What
health
if
if
you
you
drink
don't
water
address
in Jackson, Mississippi? Yeah.
those? Yeah, those are real problems all over our country. And, I'm from Mexico City. We think about infrastructure differently. We don't have potable water at the tap. But I know people that don't have safe potable water in the United States of America right now because the systems that we have fail. Um, yeah, so I mean, I think it's really important to really look into this and as engineers be like, well, maybe the one household in Mississippi doesn't understand the extra costs that they're having to pay for their road transportation, for their water infrastructure, for their energy and their broadband. But we can think of that because we work in those systems and we want to learn and we want to be able to change things and inform people so we can better invest.
And the data you use, because you're applying engineering and science to do the evaluation, and for the benefit of the audience, it is a critical analysis. I mean, it is as unbiased analysis as you can possibly get and use humans. Uh, Maybe in 4 years you'll use AI, but we won't be down that path. But you compile a horrendous amount of data from all kinds of sources at the federal and state level.
Oh, absolutely. Like, for example, for energy, we're looking at every outage that we have in this country, how long they last, how significant they are, how many households are without power. And all that data is available for things like bridges. We know the condition that those bridges are inspected in, how many of them are in poor condition,
Right.
what those trends are looking like. It is an enormous amount of data that we have to churn through. And that's what allows us to look at trends as well. So, like, if there are more water utilities that are having pollutants beyond a certain level, you can track that year by year. You can track, like, really where problems might be occurring through the data. And of course, we have experts that work in this field, so they can offer a lot of context into the data. Like, I know in Oregon, I did the Oregon report card as well.
Okay.
And we've been fantastic on energy savings. Oregonians, even though the state was growing, were actually using less energy per capita over the
Right.
last several years.
That's right.
Well, now we're seeing a 30% increase. When we've been relatively stagnant, it's because we have a lot of data centers that are moving into Oregon. So we
Oh,
have these very high energy demanding industries. So you can look and be like, oh, there is gonna be a big bump in that graph. Like, how is our energy use growing so much? Oh, well, we're building data
yeah.
centers,
I have a
manufacturing
I have
facilities.
a friend that's complaining about power in Mississippi, and I won't get into the politics of this particular individual, but he's pointing to the solar panels that went in, going, "Hey, ever since we got solar panels, our grid has become unreliable." And I said to him, I said, "Have you thought anything about that data center that got dropped in next door?" And he just stared at me. I said, "Yeah, now you got the source of the problem here." So
Yeah. I don't know if I know of a lot of very many problems that are added because you bring additional capacity to, to something.
yeah,
Yeah,
well, the
it's
the
interesting.
antiquated grid system and transmission lines may be part of the issue, certainly, but it is what it is. I'm sorry, keep going, bro. Yeah, that's great, and I'm proud of Oregon too, by the way.
Thank you. We're trying here.
I know you
Have
are.
to
I
learn.
know you are doing great things there. My daughter lives in Washington, and it's closer to get down to Portland than it is to get to Seattle, where she lives. So
Mhm.
we hear a lot about Oregon from her.
Nice.
So the I guess the we kind of touched on it, but let's bring it back to the human side for just a little bit, and just kind of briefly, or to amplify, how does this infrastructure impact people's lives? I'm going to frame it a different way. Why should people care that their infrastructure is where it is today? And then we'll talk about the grade.
Um, Granted, I'm incredibly biased because I went into a profession where I was like, I'm going to help people through this. I see it as one of the most valuable things. Everyone needs clean water in order to live a good, healthy life, to have businesses booming. You need transportation. We need energy to be our most productive. We need all of these infrastructure systems to have a good life, to have the ability to prosper. So it is very, very important. Um, I think that a lot of the ways in which it is important, we don't recognize as individuals. Every time you turn on your light, are you thinking about, hey, do we have enough transmission capacity? A lot of people have moved to this state. Can I turn on my light and my neighbor turn on my light and the new, 400 unit development down the street turn on the light without me building some infrastructure to make sure
Right,
that this continues working for us?
right.
In a lot of places in the state, water scarcity is a big deal. And not to get too political myself, but when we were having fires in California, someone was like, oh, let's just release water from Northern California.
Uh,
Um, and it's, I must have said so many times, man, we really got to teach people that south on a map is not down. Um, and just because it looks down on a map doesn't mean that water would run that way. But we know what can make water run. It's culverts and,
yeah.
this water infrastructure. Like, if we were to try and build a pipeline, we could do that. But people need to understand, hey, you have water scarcity now. What engineering solutions are there actually available that can help you, that is not just releasing water into the Pacific Ocean?
Absolutely. The poster child I always use, Anna, for this is I remember many years ago when you were probably not still in elementary school, where Nevada was talking about raising the elevation of the Hoover Dam. We're not getting enough water to service Las Vegas. Reno's beginning to populate. We need more water. So therefore, let's increase the size of the dam. And for those of you that have never seen a picture of Hoover today or been to Hoover today, I both, uh, the water level's as low as it's ever been, short of when it was filling. Raising the elevation of a structure wasn't increasing the amount of water. And fortunately, Nevada, in its wisdom, said, no, we're not going to raise the dam. What we're going to do is curtail water use and think about how we can effectively use a resource that is, for all intents and purposes, very limited.
Yeah.
And they did a great job. I mean, the early part of this century, the xenoscaping they did, and the water efficiency they did, and new construction, and the applying green building council concepts and sustainability concepts and vision concepts has really paid off for them. That they
Yeah.
made a wide move. Yeah.
Yeah, and I love the point that you make, Dennis, because this kind of leads me to another part of what I think is very important about the report card. Of course, it's important that we catch things like massive bridge failures before they happen. It's good for us to know the condition of our bridges before they're critical. Really, really important.
Right.
But we can also make so many marginal wins. If your water system is leaking 25% of your water, you can save water by not leaking it, by repairing that infrastructure. You can better
Ooh.
maintain your bridges and spend less on maintenance. Like all of us civil engineers, we're also Americans living in this system, and we want to see our tax dollars go further. I want to see every construction project really do more. So in the report card, we tell you, hey, these are the types of asset management systems that is going to help you do more for the money you already spent. These
Right.
are the types of things that can help you even if you're not in water scarcity and you're just trying to be more efficient for your community.
Right.
Um, so we really are able to give a lot of help and advice and guidance for the decision makers that are willing to listen.
Uh, Completely agree, and I think it's a really good roadmap for evaluating, assessing, or benchmarking. Good engineering term, surveying term, where you are, so that you can set a direction, have a vision, do some progressive maintenance. It just really is an important tool. Well, I guess it's time for the big reveal, as it were. What was the grade?
Oh gosh, it's like I feel like I got to give a little pre-briefing and tell
Oh
you
Lord,
that
qualifying. They graded on a curve, people.
it's not on a curve. I can show you the rubric
Sure,
of how
sure.
we get to
That's what
this
I told all my
GPA.
students when I awarded grades. Yeah, it's not a curve.
I'm going to tell you this is the highest grade that we have ever given out. That is my precursor.
Yes,
America in 2025 earned a C,
yes.
a flat C. Something that, let me tell you, I probably would have cried about in college.
Yeah, many times.
But unfortunately, with the place that we're at, that represents real progress. Like the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act money, we are seeing that increase the condition of our infrastructure. We did see a lot of bumps. We didn't have any categories in the D minus range. Our highest category, B plus ports, like operated pretty well during the COVID disruptions. So
Right.
we saw a lot of progress. There's a lot of good news in a C. Now, I'm young. I have a lot of life left in me, hopefully thriving in the United States. I want better than C infrastructure. I'm not
Sorry,
quite happy with a
that took me
C.
to a whole nother context. Keep going. Don't let me stop you.
Yeah, I really want to see us do much better. And I know with the condition of our infrastructure, ASCE is like, well, let's aim for B's first. But in my lifetime, I want to see some A level infrastructure in the United States. So hopefully we can push toward
Well,
that.
and we can do it. To finish the earlier statement, we were number one in the developed country 40 years ago. It 10, 12 years ago, we were ranked 26th. in the developed world. Today, we're ranked somewhere between 10th and 13th. So the impact that ASCE and others are having in improving the quality of our infrastructure, not just repairing, but replacing and upgrading and expanding. I'm going to steal from you what you said back during the early part of the conversation, and that is we really are designing infrastructure for the 22nd century. This infrastructure that we're talking about is going to last the rest of this century and into the next century. So it's important to design with that in mind, with that vision in place.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
that's excellent. And yes, finally to get a C. Yeah, I can imagine what my parents would have said to me if I came home. Hey, mom, I finally got a C. You, huh? You finally got down to a C? Anyway, but it's what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. The, you had all those different categories, all those different areas. I know it was a big team working, each one working within the areas of expertise with oversight and coordination for consistency and reproducibility and whatever. Um, you've outlined some of the really positive changes. Ports, for example, were robust during the 21st century. Nice try during COVID, um, and since. And so we're in a good place. And that's not just the East Coast or the West Coast ports. We also have ports on the Gulf Coast, and
Hmm.
they're all functioning really well, even with some of the key bridge failure in Baltimore and what all. They're adaptable. It's able to make adjustments to compensate that. I guess the question then becomes time to grab in the time we have left to talk today. Grab your spotlight, grab your flashlight. Um, any innovations, innovative solutions, new technologies you see coming to bear, being applied on the horizon that you think will have a positive impact on uh, the infrastructure grade the next time we do this?
That is a great question, and I'm gonna flip it a little bit.
Okay.
We have so many innovations, new technologies, things that can make a lot of change. I think the real difference in what will, what's happening right now with our infrastructure and what will come out in our next cycle is not so much of a tool or a technology. It is about funding strategies,
Okay.
and having long-term funding strategies. So, like for example, ports got the highest grade, B plus, transit one of the lowest at a D. I work on both of those types of systems, and I'll tell you that one of the main differences and why ports tend to perform so much better than transit systems is
Yeah.
because they have a very diversified funding portfolio. They
Right.
are funded by private industries, they're funded by localities, they're funded by the state and the federal government. We
Right.
all see a benefit in it. And that means that they can be more resilient. Maybe the city doesn't have enough money for an upgrade, but they can get some from the state.
Yeah.
Transit, on the other side, is something that we've kind of kicked the buck. Every transit system gets funded a little differently, but rarely do they have all of those levels of funding. In the state of Oregon, we don't have any statewide transit funding.
Right.
Portland, there's some Portland taxes that fund our metro system, but nothing sustainable for the transit system of the entire state. Um, so
Hmm.
there's some gaps in this, like, really what we would see as like a robust, diverse funding mechanisms. We want to see those public-private partnerships and investment on local level and investment on state level. Something that's diversified that can really survive and grow these types of infrastructure systems that are complex and expensive to maintain and build out.
Yeah. Let me drill down a little bit further, or take a more of a rail term, model railroader here. Take a sideline on this, or side rail on this. Part of the port advantage is that people look at ports and see one thing: economic development, economic growth, quality of life. The benefit of that is seen, and corporate America recognizes their benefit and their need in ports. Whereas when you talk about general transportation, and I fall to highways, to a large part because rail, in a large part, has been privatized and generally does pretty well on the analysis. But highways, waterways to some degree, inland waterways to some degree, air transportation along the same lines, those are all looked as municipal functions. And therefore, it's the public money that gets put into that, which in turn subsidizes industrial development. I mean, I don't know of too many industries that are going to build a large manufacturing plant if they don't have the transportation corridor to bring the raw materials in and the finished products out. Yeah, we don't generally we're looking at subsidizing that construction by the municipality or the community or the county or the state or the Fed paying
Yeah.
for the roads and infrastructure needed to put that industry there. There seems to be a disconnect, at least to me. And
Yeah, I really agree. And I do think like we could sell better the benefits of having things like mass transit. You could increase the foot traffic and downtown corridors. You could make people more mobile to go to
yes,
different places.
excellent. Yes,
Um,
excellent vision.
but a shipper will be like, "Oh yeah, if you do that upgrade, I probably can move containers faster and that'll save me some money." Um, but certainly there is the benefit in all of these infrastructure categories for both business and business ventures and developers to invest in these systems. Like there's a lot of housing, multi use development here in Oregon. You can't do that unless you have enough power and water lines.
Right.
So, like, there should be a way for them to be paying into those systems as well, commensurate with how much they're going to make based on the really nicely set up civil infrastructure that they build upon.
Yeah. Clear vision, absolutely correct. And again, going back to the other analogy, what I saw, in fact, I was approached to become if you will, an advocate. There was an industry that was located in our region that couldn't get its raw materials fast enough using an adjacent inland waterway. And what they wanted to do was develop a transportation corridor to the Mississippi River so they could get more materials faster. Completely made sense, totally understood it. But their approach to it was, and the reason it came to me because of where I was at the time, were asking me, I want you to go to Department of Transportation and convince them to change the rating on the bridges and on the roads so we can haul different trucks, heavier trucks, bigger trucks, more trucks. And it was like, yeah, no, the roads aren't designed for that. Well, we don't care what roads were designed for. The state will fix them when they wear out. And it was like, I don't think the fuel tax on those trucks is going to pay for that.
Mm-mm.
A heavy truck can be equivalent to 5,000 to 8,000 automobiles in a single pass. And so,
Mhm.
yeah, it doesn't quite work that way. My suggestion was that there was actually a rail system that went right from the waterway all the way to the plant. And it was abandoned. It was sitting there unused because there was no need for it 20 years ago, and they stopped running it. Rehab it, bring it back on. Like, oh no, we don't want to have to invest anything. We don't want to have to do anything. Again, we want to transfer this over the state. So we really, we talk about public-private partnerships. I think that's a really good way of getting it done. Community involvement is essential to this, and we also need to get corporate America to recognize that they benefit from these investments and start talking to them about how they could be an active participant in and benefit from infrastructure investment, infrastructure advancement, infrastructure improvement. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, I, I guess at this point, the obvious question then becomes, Anna, uh, we know where we are thanks to the work that you and the committee did in getting this out. Um, what's the what do you foresee, or what's the vision, if you will, if we just stop where we are, if we go back to neglecting these areas that need the help, what do you see potentially happening? Crystal ball time.
Yeah. Um, Honestly, scary. I see a scary future if we stop investing in our infrastructure or reduce the investment in our infrastructure. With the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, we were able to fund a lot of projects to rehabilitate or build new bridges. What we see when those things don't happen is that bridges fall.
Yes.
Like, they look strong, but a bridge that was designed for 75, 100 years is not gonna last 900. And I say 900, and that sounds ridiculous, but that is the rate at which we're replacing bridges in Oregon. If we were to replace at these rate, every bridge would have to last 900 years, and that is not going to happen.
No.
Disasters that we see are going to get worse because if you have things like massive flooding, because you're not taking care of your water resources correctly, and then you don't have a transportation system or a communication system to evacuate people, then people die in floods. The things that happen when we don't invest in our infrastructure are catastrophic. We can poison people by accident by releasing contaminants like landfills and hazardous waste. That is civil infrastructure. Also, all of these things that need to be maintained. On the other side, if we were to, sustain and increase our investments, what would that look like? Fast transit throughout the country that can get you to places where you need to go sooner, that can get elderly people to hospitals in a decent time and in a time that gives them agency over their life. You are going to have road conditions that allow for more safety. So we're not losing people on our roadways. And you're going to have bridges that you can not think about aside from their beauty and majesty. Uh,
Right.
so
Yeah.
that's really, really where we want to get to. We want to get to a system that is so well designed that people that don't work in civil infrastructure can just thrive. If we
Yeah.
don't invest in it, people become aware because we start to see failures. That's the real sad truth to the matter is if we don't invest in it, we pay for it.
Well, that's it. If you bought a house and never maintained it, didn't paint it, didn't keep the roof on it, didn't do the things you needed to maintain it, you, the repair costs or replacement costs would be astronomical. The
Mhm.
cost of maintaining is a fraction of the cost of replacing and repairing. And we just haven't, we civil engineers maybe haven't been as proactive in having that conversation with people. Or maybe people just, you know, want to be happy and not worry about it or expect somebody else to take care of it or, wave a magic wand, drive over that bridge for that last time, uh, whatever it may be. I mean, it looks safe now. It was safe the last time I drove over it. Why isn't it safe now? Uh,
Yeah, even though cars are getting heavier and we do all
and the
these
bridge
things.
is getting older and
Well,
the water is getting higher and the list goes on. Yeah, we live in a different world, and yeah, the infrastructure we built 50 years ago is, guess what? It's 50 years old, and it had a design life of, let's see, 50 years. So
yeah.
I would argue in your Oregon analogy that while you may be replacing them at the rate of that you would be able to replace them all in 900 years, the reality is they are probably a good number of them need to be replaced yesterday.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so
Oh, yeah.
yeah, so it's not just the linearity of it. It's there's a pin up demand for positive impact, and I think people like you and others at ASCE and outside of ASCE recognize the need and the opportunity, the need to make change, and the opportunities that exist to have impact, to see that change made. And it's an engagement of everybody, the community, public and private. It's political. It just is. But engaging the politicians in a way that allows them to be of service to people and
Yeah.
have a positive impact. And oh yeah, and by the way, let us do it the right way the first time, rather than
Yeah.
having to come in and repair it because somebody didn't. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's a lot of
Having to
things.
build something 3 times because you didn't design it right the first time is not a good financial solution.
Let's see. That was a bridge in Canada, right? Anyway, uh, Order of the Engineer. Sorry, anyway, for those of you that have painfully
I have my,
initiated into the Order of the Engineer, that was
yeah.
the initiating crux. It has nothing to do with the uh, Washington Galloping Gertie Bridge, which was only designed twice. But anyway, yeah, that's great. That's interesting. Anna, I guess to wrap things up, because that's where we are, our time to share with others is coming to a close, at least for this episode. Our time to share with each other, I hope, will never come to close, because I've always found you to be engaging, insightful, knowledgeable, energetic, committed. And these are all the reasons why I asked you to come and have this conversation. And again, thank you, thank you, thank you for doing it. But in kind of your parting shot, anything that we miss, anything that you'd like to amplify or highlight, any parting thoughts?
Yeah, I'll give you a couple parting thoughts. One, of course, it's always a pleasure to speak with you, Dennis. I'll say this: I am a civil engineer that volunteered for this. The report card is driven by volunteers.
Right.
So if anyone is listening and they're like, you know what, I like that. I want to learn about that. I don't learn about project funding through my job. Well, I invite you, come learn about it. Come read the report card. If you find me on the internet, if you find me at a conference, come talk to me about infrastructure. We really want everyone involved in this, and I hope as we get more and more people involved that we'll be able to make some real change. So
For that,
thank
for
you
that
again so
matter,
much for having me.
for that matter, join ASCE, and you can find Anna in the communities collaborate environment, uh, which I think is how I did it.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, she's not hard to find. Show up at a meeting on the West Coast, or even the national meeting, which, let's see, is on the West Coast this year.
Yeah.
I'm not forcing you to go to Seattle, but nevertheless, uh,
Yeah.
you'll find her around because she is engaged and active. Anything else?
No, that's thank you so much for your time, for having me, and for talking about the report card. And I'm going to look forward to seeing what else you guys are talking about.
Good deal. Okay. Well, with that said, folks, as always, we part company one more time. I hope the time that you've decided to invest, that you have invested with Anna and I today in this podcast, is one that has been enlightening, has been informative, has helped with your personal and professional development. It's one that, as I often say, that I hope you find the time you've invested turns dividends in your personal and professional life. Uh, Being engaged like this and having these conversations is an important aspect of what we do in the civil infrastructure business. And we can no longer sit back and be quiet. We have to have these conversations and carry them beyond where we are today if we're going to make the changes that are so desperately needed for tomorrow. So, with that, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for sharing your time with us. And until next time, take care. Be safe.
Thanks for listening to the latest episode of the Infrastructure Network.